Hi, I'm Melissa. I'm going to start the recording.
Thank you.
No problem. Sorry, Holly.
Here. Hey, Melissa.
You were the host, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, Mandy, we can proceed.
Okay. We'll call this public meeting to order, Cramahe Township, 5:01 p.m., April 13th, 2021. If you wish to participate, you see the details here. Notice of intent. The meeting is called Notice of Intent to Increase the Building Permit Fees. Background is that the Cramahe Township has not reviewed fees since 2013. Department has not been achieving 100% cost recovery for several years. It is the responsibility of department managers and senior staff to ensure departments are operating within budget each year. But it is also the responsibility of the municipality to ensure that tax dollars are being spent efficiently. With achieving 100% cost recovery by setting the fees to do so, this allows for tax dollars to flow to other areas of the township. To consider adopting a new building permit fee schedule through Section 7, subsection 6 of the Ontario Building Code as amended is the function of this meeting. It is the intent that the new fee schedule will be effective as this meeting was posted April 21st, 2021. The Township of Cramahe is proposing to amend the costs of the building permit fees following a review of the current permit fees and the costs associated with providing service to enforce the Ontario Building Code Act with regards to issuance of building permits through Section 7 of the OBC Act as amended. The effect will be to increase the existing fee structure. Can someone scroll up the agenda for me, please?
Size of the agenda be increased a little bit? It's a wee little thing on my page. I can't seem to make it bigger.
Melissa, are you able to zoom in on your screen at all?
Yeah, but then everything else disappears.
I'm trying. It won't let me.
So part of this, the application and notice of the public meeting is it was advertised. Confirmation of the notice was given in accordance with the Planning Act. Do staff want to further elaborate on that?
Yes, I can do that, Madam Mayor.
Thank
I do want to make a correction that confirmation notice was given in accordance with the Building Code Act, not the Planning Act. So in preparation of the public meeting related to the proposed building permit fee increase, the fees were advertised through our website, placing on Let's Talk Cramahe, advertised in the Northumberland News, and information was mailed and emailed to local builders. The notice was completed in compliance with Division C, Part 1, Sentence 7.9.1.2 of the Ontario Building Code for providing notice of 21 days prior to a public meeting. This all took place on March the 10th. So technically there was more than 21 days notice to the public for this public meeting.
Good, thank you. Now we have had written comments received from agencies in the public. We have a letter to council from Fidelity Homes, Inc. From McDonald Homes, David McDonald regarding the building permit fee review report. And Chief Building Official Barb Waldron has comments that she can make to address this. So I think we've all read the attachments that were coming in for discussion. Does anybody need to have these items read out? So now we have questions from the public, or sorry, questions from council.
Well, if I may begin, Van Egmond here.
Yeah.
2.1 is a false statement. We've dealt with that since 2013. I believe it was 2016 or 2017. Because every time I oppose these, I oppose vehemently, and I know it was done in 16 or 17, and the rates did go up at those times.
Okay. So I think if I can step in here, I think what's happened is that there is some concern, and by concern I mean not to do away with building permits, etc., but some understanding of the figures and how they've been calculated and so on. And I think there are some questions from our building community and our builders and so on. And so personally, what I am suggesting is, and I think Barb, you can say whether you agree or not, but I think if we have a delay and an opportunity for people to actually come and work through the figures, understand the figures more exactly, and discuss them. I think perhaps, for example, Fidelity Homes and McDonald Homes and other builders would feel that they had more opportunity to actually discuss the rationale behind the figures and how they were calculated. So if we were to hold another public session, that is to say more even an information session, so that we feel that we're all being included and consulted. I think that might help, because we're all in this together in Cramahe Township, and I think we need to go forward with that understanding, not just a feeling that things are happening without input. And I think Barb Waldron has done a superb job. She has all the credibility and finesse and education to discuss, and I think it would be a good idea to build that relationship and understanding and mutual respect. So that is my suggestion.
And I agree, fees have to go up, but why do we have to slap, I'm not sure what Barb had there, but I think it was close to 30 or 35% all right away. It doesn't even make sense to me to hit everybody up with increases like that, especially when other costs have just gone through the roof on building. And it's not like we're suffering that bad. And I know that as long as I've been in council, we've never been able to carry our building department on the fees that came in. And I'm not sure why that all of a sudden needs to happen now in 1 year.
I agree, Ed. It's not a matter of in 1 year. I think builders would be more than happy to pay something that's reasonable, basically based on numbers. I think that's, as Mandy's suggesting, is sit down and discuss with the builders basically, and with numbers, like the first thing you look at is that number like 3 for subdivision, and then you read the 2 letters basically, and you've got Fidelity and McDonald just themselves, where we're well over that. Like Dave has put in his 12 units. We've got, what is it going to county, another 65 units. We know what others in the pipeline. So realistically, the numbers, I think it's hard to, slap someone with a complete one, but it's just to come up with the realistic, I think, number that everyone can agree upon and work with, because we don't want to scare anyone away from building here either. So I'm in agreement with working with the, Barb sitting with the, like, I know it was sent out to them, but did you sit with any of the builders or anything, or contact any of them, Barb, to see what numbers? Or I see it was just off of 2020 stats. But if we go off the county stats, we might as well just pack up shop and leave, as we saw in that last presentation to us, is that, they got us in the toilet of everything. So we might as well pack up and leave, because the numbers they had us based on was we might as well just give up now. By 2041, I think we had 800 new people basically in this township. So we can't go off of the numbers that are given to us. I think we have to have a conversation with the people that are involved in the building and in the community to come up with realistic numbers.
Well, I can make a couple comments to that. Everybody had more than 20 days notice, but all these comments came in the 11th hour. So nobody even reached out to me. And in fact, the comments that were received didn't even come to me. They came to the CIO and they came to members of council. So they weren't even sent to my email, which wasn't the correct thing to do on their part, because I am the chief building official and I would have been more than happy to have discussions with them.
That
Now-
was my advice, Barb. Just hold up. I just want you to know that was my advice, so that all of council was aware that builders had concerns. And it's not, I don't think this is a direct challenge. It's like asking for permission to participate and to understand your figures. I totally get where your figures are coming and so on. It's just a matter of the time that we need together to understand. And it's just a mutual, we all need a little time on this, I think.
I understand.
To understand it.
And I would just like to clarify that when you're doing a fee review, this isn't a project you want to undertake every single year, because you should be setting your fees on kind of a typical landscape. And the reason I didn't count the 12-unit apartment building is because it's an anomaly. It's not something that we see. In the last 5 years, there has not been a 12-unit apartment building. It's an anomaly. So when you start setting your fees about, okay, this is how many permits I'm going to get this year, you have to go through this process every single year. So if you use historical data based on typical numbers of permits and types of permits, then you're setting your fees to project to a few years into the future. At the time of this report, the landscape fabric hasn't even been approved for phase 2 of Fidelity. And you typically don't count anomalies, you go on historical data. So that's where the fees structure came from. But I'd be more than happy to sit down and discuss this in a different forum as you're suggesting.
And I think, we all know what's happening. The pressure, the time is now, as we predicted would happen eventually, but it's upon us now. This is when we're up against it in terms of growth, serious growth, and what's going to happen and what lies ahead. And I think the builders too have their own take on what's ahead and what's going to be projected for this municipality. So I think if we at least start from the beginning, understanding one another and where we think things are going, so much the better. So much the better. I think that would be an equitable thing for all of us to do. I think history is a lovely thing and a great thing, but we are now right on the cusp of a new chapter. And I think we have to be comfortable and we have to understand how we're proceeding.
I agree with that. I believe that the anomaly will become more of what's going to happen in the future because Barb, who building a new home can afford the prices that are out there now? Young people are going to have to start again in smaller apartments and units. And I think what Dave is doing there is going to become more the norm than it is the anomaly.
But these are all things we can discuss at a future, where we're not quite as restricted by the formality of things. And without having to make a decision immediately, we can bring it back, next month, May, to the May meeting, if we can get together and hammer out some understanding and share understanding and figures and stats and projections. And yet,
I'm not so sure that we should even do it through a Zoom. I think we should wait until this bullshit is over and figure it out when we can all meet in public and meet together, because this stuff is garbage. People say things and they take it wrong, and you always have to cover what you say. You don't get a chance what to say, and I'm always hogging all the time here, but it just makes more sense to me to forego this year completely, because most of the builders have they've ordered their materials, they've ordered they know what they're going to do this year to hit them up on the 21st of April or whatever date we were looking at. It just makes no sense to me. So I would like to see this be foregone for a while so we can have a meeting in person.
I personally can't live with it going for another year, but anyway, because then we get into, quote, the proverbial election year, nutso kind of stuff. And I think we've got growth that is going to happen starting now. So I think we have to look it in the eye and face this down and discuss it and come to resolution and understanding.
And I agree with you, Mandy.
By the way, I mean, next on the, yes, Sandra.
I agree with you. I don't think that we can leave it till next year. I think it's something that definitely needs to be reviewed. But I do believe that there's some movement here. I've had a couple of conversations with the local contractors, and they brought. When I read Barb's report back in March, I was definitely impressed. I mean, with how she broke down each one of them, I thought it was an amazing job. When I've talked to the developers and see some of their concerns, maybe things need to be treated a little bit different. And I agree with Barb, the stuff coming at the 11th hour, especially if she had sent out these emails to everyone, we think we should have had it back a little sooner. So waiting for another month for them to pose or propose their questions to her, and then maybe be able to bring an updated document back to us for our May meeting, I think is definitely a way to go. We've definitely got their attention now. Barb's aware of some of their concerns. We've got some other ones that can come forward. And a question to me that I had, is in Barb's report back in March, the breakdown, I just did the one of the bungalow. And right now, based on what she's proposed, and our fees currently is $2,652. When that goes, and it was based on a bungalow of 1,900 square feet, the current charges, if this was accepted as proposed here, it would jump it up to $4,400. My question is, and it came to me today, is, and maybe Barb, you can answer this, is a developer or a general contractor who's constantly building homes within Cramahe that you become familiar with, is there as much time, should there be as much time identified here for them as what it is for me as an individual that I bring somebody in from the outside to help me do that document? Is there a way that we can have a possibility of an urban fee permit for a bungalow versus a rural residential, like an individual? Would that be sufficient, or would that help them out a bit? I don't know.
I would say the answer to that is no. And I can give you some examples. This week alone, I was called to one particular job site for 3 different inspections on 3 different homes. One was ready. 1 out of the 3 was ready. So, you know, I spent all the time prepping, getting ready to go, getting my file in order, getting my paperwork ready in order. I get there and 1 out of 3 is ready. So that's 2 inspections to go back to do the one is required inspection. Another one, I went to the job site to do inspection. Again, I get there, because of the weather, the guys were sent home. So I was told they're going to call me back to come back out again to do it. Today I walked into a job site to do an insulation inspection, which should have took me half hour. I found a basement full of water. I found bottom plates saturated, which created some issues. I had to go track down the contractor and have these. So, you know, you can't treat one builder different than the other. An inspection is an inspection, and issues come up. They seem to be coming up more often than not as of late. Sometimes you're going back 2 and 3 times to do the same inspection. So you can't pick and choose builders to treat them differently. You got to treat everybody the same. And that's my whole MO as a CBO, is you treat everybody the same. Because once you start treating people different, that's where you start having problems.
There is a difference if there's a builder compared to someone that's building a house that has a general contractor that comes in, it's a one-off in our township, as opposed to someone that is constantly building here. Or if you have a subdivision, you already have the plan. So how would the review time be the same for a plan that is before us? If there's only certain models before us and they say, okay, we're going to do this one, this one, this one, how could we say that it takes the same time to review it each and every time? Would we not get more efficient, like everyone should, with doing the same task over, so that we understand that, okay, we've reviewed that, that's the same thing, we're going to review it, but it should get quicker, should it not? We shouldn't have the utmost time every single time to review this. Or it's like a 40-minute round trip. Every place can't be 40 minutes away. So are we using the highest average or the lowest average? Are we using an average or just the worst case scenario? So
Well,
like it seems in this report, we're kind of using the top of the line instead of somewhere in between. It's like, okay, it could be between 20 and 40, but we're using 40. So like, is there any give and take in regards to that? It's for coming up with numbers. It seems it's using the worst case scenario.
Well, as far as the time, I actually did a little test on that yesterday. So it's not like I leave the office, go do an inspection, go back to the office, go back do an inspection. I try to loop my inspections. So yesterday I did 3 inspections, and I wrote my time down, when I started, when I stopped, when I started, when I stopped. One was down near Lake Ontario, halfway towards Brighton. One was in town, and one was on County Road 21, close to the Brighton border. Those 3 inspections, even though one was in town and one was close to town, took 53 minutes of travel time to do that loop. So you divide that by 3, that's pretty close to 20 minutes. An inspection. So, I mean, I try my best to try to cut down. I mean, my time is precious as well. I don't want to be outside more than I have to be, because I have a lot of work to do in the office. So we try our best to loop things, but the reality out there is that I'm trying to meet contractors on site at certain times. Sometimes I'm trying to get there before the concrete truck shows up. Sometimes I'm at one end of the township and have to run to the other and then back to the other. I mean, it's not an exact science where you can say, this is how many minutes it's going to take me to do this. And that's why this whole thing is based on averages.
Yeah, Barb, it's Tim Williams here with Fidelity. We're certainly interested in working with you, and we agree that the building department should hit a point of 100% cost recovery, and certainly have reasonable reserves available as justified. I guess for us, we're definitely interested in collaborating to try to come up with what that looks like if the opportunity presents itself. Just with respect to the 20-minute average, yeah, we have no problem with that. Some of the things that we found with the report were just maybe things that need some tweaking, because the total time for like the permit type number 1 for the bungalow, it wasn't using 20 minutes. The page beforehand, you did say that some inspections are less, some are more, but the average is 20. But then in the actual calculation time for the inspections required, you used 11 round trips at 40 minutes, which is 7 hours and 20 minutes, but you allowed for 8 hours of travel time. So for us, it was, it was really hard to believe that there's that much travel time. And I think that was just probably a mistake, which is fine. But we just want to be able to go over it and make sure that the forecast of homes, we're also not asking for necessarily for special treatment of any type amongst builders. It's really about, hey, what's the proper forecast, maybe not based on the last 5 years, but based on the next 5 years, and what are reasonable averages, so that at the end of the day, you don't end up with absolutely no money in the coffers and a deficit, but you also don't end up with 27 houses beyond what you expected and have $104,000 in surplus revenue that would far exceed what would be considered to be reasonable costs based on Bill 124, which would put you in breach of the statute.
Okay, I'm willing to sit down and talk all this out, and maybe we do need to fine tune a few things, but I do want to comment on the reserve, and that's one of the reasons I had the solicitor prepare that report and focus on the reserve. It's not a fine science. It's hard to say what is reasonable, what is not. To me, what is reasonable is to make sure that you have some money in that reserve. It's when you have one slow year, that's $100,000 to a $200,000 hit on the reserve. So what is reasonable? Having 1 year in there, having 2 years in there. Rural municipalities don't need millions of dollars in their reserves, but you do need a fair amount of money to cover a couple slow years. And COVID, if it has showed us anything, I actually don't understand why there's so many permit applications coming in because of the cost of material and the fact that material is hard to get right now. But if COVID has showed us anything, it's a scenario where we could have a year where we have no permits if we have another pandemic. I'm just using that as an example. But that question of reasonableness, and I had a lengthy discussion with the solicitor about this, is what is reasonable for the municipality? To me, having in the bank a couple years of money to cover a couple years of slow years, that's reasonable to me.
Yeah, and I guess it warrants a discussion to really take a look at what the builders are forecasting. I mean, it's hard to predict what COVID will and won't do for our geographic area. I certainly don't see things slowing down, but how do I know any better than the next person? I think part of sitting down is really to, you're certainly new to Cramahe, and that's great. But there's also things in the report that we're unfamiliar with, and it's things like pre-occupancy and even an air barrier inspection. I don't think we've ever actually called specifically for an air barrier inspection as an example. On the current building permit package right now, it lumps that one in with framing, and there isn't a requirement for pre-occupancy. And I don't want to be embarrassed saying that. If others are familiar with what an interim occupancy permit is, let me know, but I haven't been familiar with one in Cramahe. The other piece is in the report, it talks about site plan approvals and a certain amount of time allocated to that. Well, currently, I can only speak for Fidelity's scenario, but at Foxtail Ridge, we submit a site plan, which we obviously pay to have prepared, and then your department sends that to Tatum, and they review that on your behalf at our cost. So, and again, we get billed for that. So it is really just a question of if we can sit down and take a look at what are the fees, what are the averages, what are the realistic scenarios, and then if we link that to what is the realistic forecast based on all of our professional opinions and maybe even what we have in pre-sold units moving forward, then we just close the gap a little bit on that number. And I'm definitely not saying that there isn't a valid point in having a reserve. I really think that, even from the letter that we put forward, we agree. We think there should be 100% cost recovery without exception. And we really believe if the forecast were more accurate to what this year really will look like, and again, anomalies aside, we think you'll end up with an extremely large surplus from this year alone. We also have a plan that I think we may have shared with you with respect to some of the future stuff that we have going on. I think that's all good conversation, because we're definitely not, it would not be wise of the builders in town to not get along with the building inspector. It's just, this was sort of something that we took a look at and went, okay, we would be irresponsible as builders to not challenge some of the data that's in here. That's really all from our part.
And I appreciate that comment, Tim. And I mean, I've been doing this job for 22 years. So I have, a lot of this is my own experience. I've done hundreds of inspections. I pretty much can predict what I'm going to get to see on site, although it seems to be more issues that are coming up lately. But as far as planning goes, I was the director of planning and building in my last job. So I had a lot to do with planning. And you know, it's all well and good for a developer to come and say, this is our plans for the future. And, you know, we own this land and we want to have 300 units here or whatever. That's great to have that plan. And I'm excited to see stuff like that coming to Cramahe. But the reality is that that doesn't exist right now. And I have seen in my time, things fall through. I've seen 2 major subdivisions in my last municipality that looked amazing on paper, looked like they were going ahead, and then all of a sudden they stopped because there were some major issues that come up. So I don't want to bank on stuff that it hasn't been approved. Maybe we'll have capacity for everything. Maybe we won't. But those are the kinds of things that I want to be cautious of. I don't want to set my fees on hopes and dreams. I want to set my fees on, I'm going to be able to recover 100% because that's the responsible thing to do. And as CBO, I'm going to push that, that I feel it's the municipality's responsibility to make sure the taxpayers are not paying for other people's development and that the permit fees are covering that. So I welcome the conversation. I feel, well, you'll probably learn from me, I'll learn from you, and hopefully we can move forward.
Sounds good.
Are there any further comments from council or public?
I have a comment. My name is Keith Herring. I'm from the Northumberland Builders and Construction Association.
Yeah.
I just I echo everything that Fidelity just spoke about, so I'm not going to rehash that. We have a number of members with a number of concerns, and we'd like to be involved in the next set of negotiations on behalf of those members as well, if we can be included. I would like to comment back about, you know, everybody was given more than 21 days with the COVID excuse aside. I think the mayor's comment about, can we reach out to people? Can we do more reach out? I mean, there's only a limited number of stakeholders in this group. And yes, advertising is great. And yes, on the radio is great, but with a limited number of stakeholders, we'd like to see more direct reach out as well. That's not a slight. That's just everybody's got a lot going on. Everybody's dealing with a really lot this year. So, you know, we'd like to be able to give time to our members as well. So if somebody reached out to us, it takes time to talk to them. And that's just not happening in 3 weeks. So that's the additional comment I would make is at least another month of intervention and cooperation between our groups would be required to get a reasonable agreement, I think. So May might be pushing it, more like June meeting, or if there's another one in the summer. And that's it. Thank you.
Could I ask that Keith, if you could send me your information via my email, and we'll make sure that we keep in contact with you for sure.
Absolutely, Barb. I'll have Carly send the information tomorrow.
If I
it
have
may be
a-
worthwhile. Sorry, Tim here again. I was just going to say it, just elaborating on extending that a little bit beyond a month. It's, we also recognize, Barb, you've got a lot on your plate as well with turning permits around, especially this time of year. So I just want to make sure that if in fact we're going to be, you know, collaborating and you know, renegotiating as it's been put, you know, I think it would be wise of us to give a little more time than, you know, a month or two, even, just to make sure that we get it right. I'm not suggesting it has to wait till next year either. But I also don't want to see, you know, us try to pack this all into the next 30 days.
Okay. So in terms of a format, what do you see, what do you perceive as a format?
Was that directed at myself?
At anyone? I'm
Sure.
saying you're.
I'm not sure personally. I love the idea of a forum in person, recognizing, Ed, that could be a ways away. I'm not sure what to suggest.
Well, I would suggest that, you know, right now we can't even consider that because we're of this, the order that we're under right now. But when we come out from underneath that order, I wouldn't be waiting till the end of the pandemic. We could be waiting for a long, long time. I think that we have facilities that can accommodate people and maintaining social distancing. Maybe that's something that we can look at, maybe the Keeler Center. I'm just throwing that out there because that's a big building that's coming to my mind, but I think that we can probably figure something out to have a face-to-face. And I prefer face-to-face. I like seeing people and talking to people and getting to know you. I'm a chief building official that likes to work with people, and I'm not here to be difficult, and I'm not here to make problems for everybody. I'm here to make sure that we build our buildings right, and I make sure that I am protecting the municipality, and that I'm protecting the people that are going to be moving into those homes. That's my job. And meeting face to face to have these conversations, I'm more than willing to do that. So maybe we can, from our end at the municipality, figure some way out when we get out from underneath this current order, that we could have a public area where we can all meet and have a good discussion.
Good.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea.
Is there any further
Yeah,
comment?
if I can follow up on that, I think that's a great idea. It's David McDonald Homes here. Sorry, I should have announced myself. Welcome to Cramahe, Barb. I wish we were not meeting on a Zoom call. We did work years ago up in Autonomy South Monaghan. You probably don't remember, but it went real smooth. So I have high hopes of working with you here in Cramahe Township. And I do like the idea of getting together in person. I mean, I've been through this type of exercise before with Rick Jones in Brighton. And I know we've always been able to kind of find common ground that worked for everybody. And I would certainly welcome the opportunity to do the same with your office.
Thank you.
Good. So what I think I'm hearing is that after the lockdown is lifted, Barb, you can arrange a forum or a meeting place, etc., and propose dates. The lockdown has us pretty much smacked down for April. So, but I am hearing everybody say they would prefer to meet in person, just not in a crowd. Okay, so we'll leave it then for Barb. Do you want to, you can facilitate that or arrange, you can send out notices if people would, anybody who isn't on now, we will ensure that we get contact out as people, we become aware of people. or as you yourselves in the building association, let us know. Please let Barb know the contact.
For sure.
And we can close the loop on that and get it arranged.
Mandy, I did unmute everyone, just if anyone was muted and didn't have an opportunity to speak up when you'd asked for comments. So if everyone's unmuted now, if anyone else has any.
Okay.
I agree with Barb. I think we need to pull down the Keeler Center and get everybody talking so that we can have a real discussion.
Good.
And one other thing is, I think that the developers or anybody that's got the questions, don't wait to that public meeting. If you've got those concerns now, give Barb the heads up so that she can be working on things. So it's when it comes to that meeting that we're not surprised. She can have a lot of stuff ready and available for them upon that on-site meeting.
Cool. Okay. Any further comments?
Hey, Mandy, it's Heather here. I'm in the car coming back from my eye appointment. But I did just want to say,
Heather Sadler is our planner, folks.
thank you, Mayor Martin. I guess my comment, I missed most of the meeting and I do apologize for that. My appointment ran longer than I thought, but regardless, I guess my only comment would be to the various developers, construction folks in the community. As much as it would be nice to be able to tailor fees to circumstances for each specific developer, obviously that's not possible. We have to take averages, and that is what Barb has done. She's been very thorough in looking at all the different permutations and combinations of things. You know, as much as it would be nice to assume that everything goes smoothly on a permit, it rarely does. Quite often she has to go back and back for inspections, and things get canceled at the last minute. So as much as, you know, I think the discussion that we're talking about is great, but at the same time, I think we have to be realistic that in the end, there's going to be some visits that may be shorter and others longer, but there's going to have to be an average that will be reflected in our fees. So we want to be responsive to the community, but at the same time, I think people have to understand that we do have to put it all in a pot and stir, and you know, it may not come out that it suits everyone absolutely, but we'll do our best to try to reflect the concerns that are raised.
Thank you. So now, Holly, do we need an adjournment, a motion of adjournment? Or can we just adjourn the public meeting?
Yeah, we'll need the motion for adjournment.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Just the time of adjournment.
Okay. Are there any further comments? Last call.
Okay, I'll make a quick comment. Barb did an excellent report, and when you get that report, everything was top notch. But then when you get the concerns of the developer, I could see there's two. That's why it's important you have a discussion. And I always feel sometimes the answer is somewhere in the middle. So I hope that out of this, that there'll be winners. There's always winners and there's always losers, but not when you come to a compromise, and people can live with that. So hopefully with the developers now sitting down with Barb, they can hash out their ideas together, and hopefully they can come to a resolution. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. So, shall we then adjourn this meeting at 5:44 p.m. on April 3rd?
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks. Take care.
Have a good day.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Council, see you back at 6 p.m.
6.
Okay. We could probably just stay here.
Hold on.
It's a different Zoom meeting.
Hold on to the internet while you have it. See you later.